everyone, Jennifer here. I'm just popping into the very beginning again to ask you to please rate and review this show on any podcast platform that allows it, especially Apple Podcasts, because that really helps the show find new listeners. Okay, here we go.
We all were home, and I know my mom was relieved for that because she was scared for the kids. And I know once they started going online, it was really hectic and hard because my parents had to have I believe there was 5 of us that were going to school at the time, so they had to have all of us 5 of us sitting at the computer, all signed in and trying to help each of us with questions while everyone's talking, and it was very hectic.
There was the last normal day. The last day that things were the way they were before they weren't anymore.
We kind of all rushed out of the house and said a quick goodbye, and little did I know that would be the last time I hugged my mom.
He yells and tells me he's getting ready to go. He said, "I'm okay, just stay here, I'll be home in a few hours." We tell him bye and he leaves. That was the last time we ever saw him.
It's like the minute that helicopter hit the air, it just hit me what I was watching, because I knew he wasn't coming home and he knew he wasn't coming home.
For me, I took it more personally because I'm a nurse practitioner, and why can't I save him? I can help all these other people, and why can't I save him?
They're telling us that it was time, we needed to make a decision, we need to go ahead and just take him off the ventilator. And I was like, how do we know?
One thing I like to tell people is that if you lose somebody to COVID, your need to talk about the person you lost will outlast other people's desire to hear about it.
We make sure that our family members and loved ones' memories lived on. That's really important to me, is that people don't forget. I don't want to forget any of it.
So talk about them. Talk about them till people are sick of hearing about them. Because as long as you're still talking about them, they're never far away.
And the last thing that my mom said is, she said, when you get to heaven, we will look for each other.
Hello everyone, you're listening to For Those We Lost. I'm your host, Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you for being here. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com, or go to the website forthosewelostpodcast.com and click on the contact button, and you can reach me that way as well. Also, if you'd like to help support the show, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. That link is in the show notes. Okay, let's get started with this episode. Today, I'll be talking to Alysia and her dad, Robert, in California. Alysia reached out to me about losing her mom, Sarah, to COVID on November 3rd, 2021. She is one of 10 children, ranging in age from about 3 to 21. Throughout our conversations, she always had her dad, Robert, on the line. When I asked him if he wanted to be on the show too, he said no, that he would be too sad. So it was pretty wonderful that during this recording session, Robert joins in the conversation and talks about his grief at losing his wife and how his family is healing. For context, we recorded this episode on August 26th, 2022. Alysia and Robert both answered questions and were there to support each other. Some of Robert's answers were a little quiet, so I did my best with the audio. And with that, I'd like to welcome Alysia and Robert to the show.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and we have your dad, Robert, who is there and will jump in if he wants to.
Yes.
Yes. And today we're talking about your mom.
Yes, my mom's Sarah.
Sarah. I had that written down to find out what her name was because I didn't have that in my notes. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And you live in California.
Yes, we live in Elk Grove near Sacramento.
Oh, yeah, I know right where that is.
Mm.
I know right where that is. And your mom passed away. Did she pass away in October or November of 2021?
November 3rd.
Okay. All right. So where I'd like to start is where I start most of my shows, and that's in March of 2020. If you want to just briefly talk about, I know you have a lot of brothers and sisters. There's 10 of you all together.
Yes.
And what changes did you make? How did you first hear about COVID, and how did it change your family and how you interacted with the rest of the world?
Well, I would say the only thing that really changed for us was more just starting to wear a mask. My mom was always been really big on germs and sanitizing right when we got in the car, and then making sure the kids washed their hands whenever we would get home from anywhere, even if they just sat in the car. But I remember when I first heard of COVID, I was coming downstairs or out of my room to get ready for school, and my dad had the news on, and he was talking to my mom on the couch about us going into a pandemic and how it was really crazy. And I didn't listen to him too much about it. I just kind of got ready and left. But I know when I got home, he was talking about how we need to go stock up on groceries and how things were going to be crazy.
Yeah. And all of you, I'm assuming, were at home once school shut down.
Yes, we all were home, and I know my mom was relieved for that because she was scared for the kids. And I know once they started going online, it was really hectic and hard because my parents had to have I believe there was 5 of us that were going to school at the time, so they had to have all of us 5 of us sitting at the computer, all signed in and trying to help each of us with questions while everyone's talking, and it was very hectic.
Wow. And were all 10 kids at home, or were they other places?
No, we were all still at home.
Wow, so 12 of you at home together.
Yes.
That's
and then
so much togetherness.
yeah, and then also my niece was also at home at the time. She was just a little one.
Wow. And with your mom regarding germs, did she ever say where that came from or why she was so focused on being germ free? Did that come from something that happened to her a long time ago, or do you know?
Yeah, so she had told us that years ago she was at a Kohl's, and a lady was taking the security tag off of one of her clothing items, and they had picked their finger and got blood all over it. And so she said ever since then, like she can't help but she won't eat out. She wouldn't go out to eat. She would like double check people when they took off security tags because she'd be scared that, someone's blood is going to get on something. But ever since then, she'd been the biggest germ freak.
Wow. So you guys were in a way kind of pandemic ready.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. All right. And so I know when we talked on the phone, you told me that like you guys lived with all of the restrictions and at home and doing all the things until October of the next year. So why don't you pick up there and just walk us into what happened with your family and your mom?
Yeah, so we have all been, we always wear masks and washing our hands, big on sanitizer since the beginning of the pandemic. But I know it was kind of hit, we had got it in October, I believe October 17th of 2021. And it was a little after the kids started going back to school. So, we were trying to keep up on everything. Everything, of course, was very hectic with that. And I remember I had gotten home from the movies, and I remember I was just not feeling good after that. And so I thought, I was just getting sick. But the next morning I thought, okay, this is the sickest I've ever been in my life. So my mom had told me to go request a COVID test from Kaiser and go get one done. So I had done that, and my mom had me staying at my boyfriend's house, even though all the other kids were getting sick, just until we figured out what I had, to make sure, we were sectioning off and not just coming together without knowing. And a couple days following, all the other kids had gotten sick. Everyone had gotten sick besides the 3 people that were vaccinated in the house. And all the kids had gotten their COVID test, and they had all came back positive. Except for the 3 that weren't sick, we still got the at-home test. And then my oldest sister went and got one done in the clinic, and they're all testing negative still. And I know that my mom had gotten sick towards when we were all getting better. I know first she lost her smell and her taste. I remember she wasn't feeling too well, and I was finally allowed back over once we knew we all had the same thing. And I remember walking in the house, and I seen her drinking an Italian soda, and I told her how it looked really good, and she had laughed and told me that she couldn't taste it. But she told me she could tell it was good. But I know my dad, never left her side when she started to not feel good. So did you want to speak on that a little more, on how she felt and how you would help her out?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, well, my wife wasn't feeling very good, and I still remember the night that I took her to the hospital, and she had just been really nauseous, and her cough just sounded horrible, and I just remember her cough, and I told her that doesn't sound very good. But she didn't want to go to the hospital yet. And she got up to try to do some laundry. And then I know she got really lightheaded and was about to pass out. And that's when she called for me. And I told her maybe we should just go to the hospital, and, we'll probably get a couple of IVs, and then we'll both be home later tonight. Yeah. And we both went, and, they kept her. And, my wife was like, she never smoked, never drank, didn't have any underlying conditions. I honestly just felt that she was going to be fine.
Yeah. Were you sick as well? Did you have COVID as well?
Yes, I did. And that made it so hard too, because I didn't really, I don't really feel like I understood how sick she was, because I was so sick at the same time.
Yeah. It's a bit of a mind trip when you have COVID and then you recognize this person that you love has it. And like with my mom, when she died, and then I got COVID a few months later, it messed with my mind, thinking, how bad was it for her if it was this bad for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the doctors the whole time were telling us, oh, she's fine. Even though they put her in the ICU, they said she'll be here for a couple of days, and then we'll move her, back down to a regular room. And it, that didn't happen. And, they originally told us, we're just going to put her on a ventilator for a couple of days, and that will, that'll give her body a break. And then, she should be fine. They were talking about rehab the whole time. So I'm getting the house ready for her to come home. They said she might be in a wheelchair for a few months. So I was just trying to get that ready. And then after a few days, they honestly made it sound like like they could just put her on and take her off and everything would be okay. Um, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, when they called us and told us that she was having complications and we needed to get down there.
So how long was she in the hospital before you got the call?
I think she went in on October 22nd, and on November 2nd is when they called us. So she was there for about 10 days, and she was only on the ventilator for about a week, but how many days? It was 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah, so she was on the ventilator, I'm sorry, for 4 days. It just felt like the longest 4 days of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we were supposed to have a FaceTime with her. We did that every night. And then about like 5 minutes before our FaceTime was supposed to happen, they called us and said that she wasn't breathing on her own and that they were keeping her alive through chest compressions and we needed to get down there right away.
And did everybody go? Did everyone go to the hospital?
No, we had I think it was just me and my oldest daughter and my oldest son, and then Alysia, my third oldest, came with us.
Yeah.
So we just drove down there really quick. And even when I got there, I remember I was just yelling to her from the hallway saying, I'm here, you're okay.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be okay. And the doctors, I think, got upset with me, and she told me, no, everything's not okay. I need to go in there and say my goodbyes.
Oh, was that frustrating? That sounds like it would be frustrating to have somebody telling you what to say to your wife.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to try to accept,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They told me that she had been her brain's been without oxygen for too long, and that there's no way that she would recover. That her heart's probably going to stop any minute, so I should get in there.
And did you have regular updates every day where they were telling you that she was getting worse? Or it sounds to me like, from what I'm hearing from you and Alysia, that you thought she was holding her own and going to get better, and then it just went so quickly in the other direction.
Yeah, we were getting updates daily, twice a day, and everybody was telling us that that she's okay, she's she should be fine, she should recover, except for, I think it was her first morning update before that phone call. They said that her lungs were retaining fluid and that they were going to drain them, and that her oxygen was at 100, and that they really they need everything to go good from here on. We can't have any more problems because there's nothing else that they can do. And I still thought that everything would be okay. After everybody telling us that, I was thinking, okay, she should be okay.
Yeah. And so were you all able to be with her together?
Yeah, I think I let up to my 12-year-old go down there, and then I kept the younger ones at home with family. I didn't want them to see her like that. I was debating even letting my teenagers go in, but I didn't want to cheat them from being able to tell her bye.
And so you all get to the hospital. Did they allow you all in the room together, or was there a limit on how many people could go in at a time?
They only let 3 of us in at a time.
Oh.
Yeah.
With such a big family, that had to be so hard not to all be able to be there together.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had the kids taking turns.
Yeah. So That you must have gotten all dressed up in all the PPE and everything, and then had everybody cycle through and come in and out.
Yeah, yeah. So we did that for about, I think about 6 hours that we were down there before she passed.
Oh, I want to say, like, at least you were there when she passed, but I also know that that comes with its own heartache.
Yeah, yes, the definitely, the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah. So were you able to have a funeral for her?
Yeah, yeah, we did. We had I found her a perfect spot that's close to home. It's there's like a pond right next to it. It's next to a huge angel statue, and there's so much wildlife and wild turkeys and coyotes and dragonflies, and she just loved animals. She was huge on nature, so I know that she loves that spot.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to have a funeral. Were there any limits on that, or were you all able to be there and have friends and family there?
Yeah, no, there was no limits, and we had friends and family, and a lot of people came to her service, and yeah, so I'm glad that we were able to have that. I know a lot of families weren't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that you guys are in that year, that first year where you're going through a lot of birthdays.
Yeah.
And her birthday and your anniversary, and then you guys went right into Thanksgiving and Christmas. What was that like for your family?
Um, that was really hard. It's always just been, me, my wife, and the kids. Uh, I lost both my parents when I was really young, so I don't really have any family. And her family is pretty distant from us. They don't really come around or call much. So, it's just always been us. So it's really hard. It's just a big part of us is missing.
Yeah. And how are all the kids? Alysia, you are the third oldest, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I wanted to add on to what my dad said about those holidays. Every holiday, well, those three specifically, for example, so Thanksgiving, we had actually bought a big table and a bunch of chairs, and so her spot is one of the newer spots at that cemetery, so no one's really buried next to her yet. So we had set up a table right next to her, and then we ate at Thanksgiving with her. And then for Christmas, it was raining, but she's right next to also a pavilion. So we had to set up a table and a bunch of, Santa had left the gifts under the pavilion for the kids to come and open on Christmas morning. And I know that was really, really fun. And so, yeah, I'm sure this year it's kind of going to be a similar thing, because all the kids whose birthdays have passed, they have all decided that they want to open their presents with our mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful that that you can do that and just go right there and share it all with her.
Yeah, we've been lucky to have that at least.
Yeah. So how is everyone doing? And how are you coping with your grief? And have you reached out to COVID groups or grief groups or anything like that?
Well, in the beginning, we had tried to reach out to some grief groups, but a lot of them didn't have availability to talk for a while. So I think knowing that we couldn't have the kids or even us talking to someone for a while, we kind of took matters into our own hands. We are always there for the kids, and the kids always try to. They're doing rough. Of course, everyone has harder days than others, but we have some of the kids talking to their therapist. And I know, like, at school, my younger siblings, the 10-year-old and the 5-year-old, they get to talk to a counselor at their school, and I know they get called out of class and get to color and talk about my mom, and I know they really like her. We also got a lot of books one of my sisters are really into like John Edwards, a psychic medium. So I know she likes to read his books and look into videos like that. And I feel like all the kids have their own things for to look forward to, or to, you know, help them with their coping. And we just kind of figure it out as we go along and just kind of help the kids where we can.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. That's just. And do you take a lot of responsibility, you and your older brother and sister, in just like the day to day?
I would say I definitely try to help out as much as I can. I try to clean up the house a lot. But I would definitely have to give all the credit to my sister Angel. She's the sister right above me. She's 21, but she is literally downstairs helping with the kids all day, every day. If she leaves, she always has a couple of them with her, and she does a majority of the cooking in the house.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. I'm sure your mom is looking down, very happy.
Oh yeah, definitely very proud of her.
Yeah. I want to ask a question about like your healing process. And do you ever feel angry or frustrated at just like the grief process or the hospital, or the restrictions that your family had with being able to be there and then not be there for quite a while with your mom?
Yeah, of course. I think well, oftentimes when we go on the freeway, if we go north on the freeway, we eventually pass the hospital. And I know it's just, you know, a giant building that you can't not look at. It's so I feel like whenever I drive past it, of course it, you know, makes us think. But I know something that my mom would want is to probably just try to think of the best memories with her. I know she would never want to see any of us sad. So instead of thinking of the bad memories of the hospital, I know well, I had to go there a while ago for a physical for my job, and it wouldn't, and I went tried to go into the entrance that I had to go into, and she passed, but for some reason the worker had told me that I had to go in through the other entrance, and it was the entrance I had to go into when I was in labor with my son, and I had my mom there, and she was really funny and motivational for that time. So I kind of feel like she made that happen, so then that way I wouldn't think of a bad memory, and I would more think of a better one.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like with the John Edwards and everything else that you see her in a lot of ways just in your daily life.
Yeah, I know. It was really funny because on my dad's birthday, he was asleep upstairs, and we had woke him up in the morning with some flowers delivered. We figured he could bring them to my mom's spot, and so once the lady left, we had waited for her to leave them on the porch, because it was like a porch where she drops them off on the porch, like a porch pickup kind of thing. And when the lady finally came, she was running late, and when she dropped them off, when we went upstairs to wake up my dad, he woke up to the show he was watching was singing happy birthday, and he kind of thought that was a funny coincidence.
Oh. Oh, wow. Yeah, that I hope that brings you some comfort. I mean, I see my mom in butterflies, and I always have. And I went to see a psychic medium about a year after she passed away, and it was surprising how much it helped me to hear this woman. I didn't even tell her about my mom. I just went in to see her, and I thought, well, I'm going to test her out and see how good she is. And she had a lot of really great things to say, and a lot of things to say about my mom and what happened, because I couldn't be there with my mom when she passed away.
No.
And I really didn't want my mom to be angry with me for not being able to be there. And this woman provided a lot of comfort without even realizing it, and telling me that my mom knew I did the best I could. And then she also said that my mom was in the butterflies, and I had never told her about the butterflies.
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow, that's awesome. I know we've tried a couple different psychic mediums, but we have an appointment I think September 13th to talk to another one, because I know one we got was pretty far off, but then the second one we seen was a little bit closer, so we're hoping that we can get a little bit closer of some comfort with knowing some stuff.
Yeah. So I want to ask you both a question. What do you miss the most about her?
Gosh, I miss everything, I miss her laugh, her sense of humor, her smile, um, just everything.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, even when me and my mom weren't in the same room together, she would always make jokes because I would FaceTime her for everything. So I would say we were on the phone a majority of the day. And even when I wasn't here, she knows that I would be right back to call her and mess with her. And so she always found that funny. And we would have inside jokes about how she's always on the phone with me. And we would always text. And so of course I miss texting her and calling her all the time. Um, my mom was always the early bird in the morning. She would always be up at like 6 and downstairs drinking her coffee. So now I'm up early all the time, but just kind of wait a couple hours for the kids to come down. And usually she would be sitting at the edge of the couch drinking her coffee, watching the news.
Yeah. And how long were your parents married?
How long have you guys been married? I know they've been together 26 years, but
Been married 22 years.
22
Wow.
years. Yeah.
Wow. That's a long time to spend with someone and then to just suddenly be without them.
It's definitely, a different life that I don't like and I'm not used to.
Yeah. Have you talked at all as a family about what you're going to do when you get close to that time in October? Because a lot of people talk about the reliving of what happened in the end of October and her going in the hospital and then the day she passed away. Have you made any plans as a family for what you're going to do during that time?
No, we haven't. I still relive, that day in my head, all the time. Um, and my wife loved Halloween. She loved getting the kids all dressed up and it's just that was big for her. She loved that. And so I'm really not looking forward to any of it. I'd rather not think about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I just had a question and it just left me. Shoot. Oh, I know. I wanted to ask you, Robert. I know Alysia mentioned it a little bit about her feelings. Do you experience the different feelings of anger at the hospital or frustration or whatever at what happened and the different regulations and rules? Because different states had different rules and people were able to be there a lot of the time, and in other states like ours, the whole West Coast, were not. Do you experience that, and how are you moving through that?
Yeah, I definitely feel angry a lot. I feel like the hospital wasn't upfront with me, and I didn't really understand how sick she was, or I asked them plenty of times, was she going to be okay? And they told me, yeah, she should be fine. They didn't tell me, what we don't know. I just feel like I wasn't given enough knowledge about the ventilators. I regret letting her be on a ventilator. I just wish that, I wasn't so sick at the time and I understood more of what was happening.
Yeah. And how long did it take for you to recover from COVID?
I think I just started getting better around November 11th, the day of her funeral. It took me a while, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the last questions that I ask people is, and I know at the beginning you talked about your mom and the germs. Do you think that part of the reason, because you mentioned she had no pre-existing conditions, and she was only 40 years old, right?
Yes.
So, do you have any theories on why COVID hit her so hard, or do you think it might be because she isolated pre-pandemic so much?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think she was just such a germ freak, and didn't really her body wasn't used to it. And I think that's why it hit her so hard.
Yeah, that's do people ask the pre-existing condition question? I mean, do people say things when you tell them that she passed away of COVID? Do they ask like what other things were wrong with her? I hate that question. I just ask.
No, yeah, I get that question a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you say?
Um, just that she had no pre-existing conditions, and she was supposed to be fine. It just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I find it a callous thing that people ask. People ask me that with my mom, and I've talked to plenty of people on the show who say that people, they don't even necessarily say, "I'm sorry for your loss,"
Yeah.
which if somebody died of cancer or a heart attack or a car accident, most people, their first inclination would be to say, "I'm so sorry for your loss."
Yeah.
But with COVID, people don't necessarily do that. They hold that part back and want to know what else could have caused the death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even now that's where I hold most of my irritation and anger and frustration is with people's response.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people will say, they'll say, "Are you sure it was COVID?" And then we'll say, "Yeah, it said it on the death certificate." And then that's once we mention the death certificate, then they're like, then they, stop saying it. But until you mention it, they'll ask a couple different ways of basically saying the same thing of how they don't think it was that, and how a lot of times people will say it's that and it's not, and stuff like that, when it's not really, a topic that we're going to debate.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's frustrating too. The death certificate thing, I actually had somebody ask me what was on my mom's death certificate. And that's not something that you generally talk to anybody about when someone passes from something else.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah. How are things in California now? Are they fully back open? The kids are in school, and have things mostly returned to, I'm going to make air quotes, normal? I don't like that word anymore, but have
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, everything here is pretty much back to how it was pre-pandemic, I would say. For everyone else, for us, the kids don't, still don't really go out, and of course, if they do, for everything, we always are wearing our mask.
Yeah. Well, the last question I ask, and if each of you don't mind, or if you have the exact same answer, or mostly the same answer, just let me know. But what do you say to people who tell you that COVID isn't real?
Well, I honestly, I don't really, when people say that, like, or even if, of course, a lot of people don't know about my mom, and we just happen to be having a conversation, and, they kind of emphasize that or say it, I don't really argue with people. I kind of just know that that's not someone that I would want to really be around. Because I know, there's been a couple times when I'm, at work, or talking to someone, a conversation that, at a store or whatever it is that I came across. I don't even debate with people like that, because obviously, I mean, if I could go into a lot of details, and a lot of people who have lost someone, of course, very important to them, but I think it's just kind of a waste of time. I even if I've tried, because I know I had posted a TikTok of my little sister. It had actually got about 2 million views on it, and a bunch of likes of her saying something at my mom's service. And in the comments, someone had mentioned and asked how my mom had passed. And so I had told them how that it was a COVID loss. And then, people in the comments, of course, most people were super supportive, but, of course, there's a couple people who said it's not real. And so so then I try to tell them, about some stuff, and, tell them like statistics, and of course some people just are hard-headed and say that they don't want to believe anything else you say. If they say it's not real, then there's no debating with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Robert, have you had anybody say to you that COVID isn't real, and how did you answer?
No, I haven't had anyone tell me that, but yeah, I'd probably be pretty irritated by it, considering, the pain that my family's going through.
Yeah, and it's not something, I mean, especially for you, I think you have these kids to raise, kids that you had with her. Oh gosh, this is going to get me a little bit. And she was going to be there by your side through all of it.
Yeah, we had so many plans, and we always talked about, having the grandkids over for the holidays and all this stuff. It's like that, won't get to happen now.
Yeah. Are there things that you do in your family? I know that you went there for Thanksgiving and Christmas to the graveside, but are there things that you do as a family to keep her memory alive for the younger ones who will not really have a clear memory of her as they grow up?
Well, my wife was big on pictures. She would always take so many pictures and videos of the kids, and so
well, I was gonna say for everyone's birthday this year, my sister Angel had bought a bunch of little hearts that hold recordings. So each kid has gotten my mom saying something to them in a heart recording. Yeah, and then anytime there's any problems in the house, between the kids, little bits of drama, we always refer to something my mom would say or how she would handle it. And so the kids, of course, some of the older kids, or even the up to the 10-year-old know, or the 5-year-old too. She's very smart, but they all know. We kind of tell them what would mom say, and since everything's happened, so of course they remember that because that's something we mention daily. And there's just pictures of her all over the house. And I know sometimes the 3-year-old Mikey will walk up to us and ask me to see a picture of my mom, and I'll tell him, look right here, because that's where the pictures are. And then he'll tell me, well, I want to see a different picture. So we have her phone locked up in the safe, and I'll get it out and show him videos of my mom talking to him, and he just kind of smiles and then walks away after a minute. So
wow. So you keep her phone. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's gonna be something over the years that's going to be so important and wonderful for them to continue to have that connection with her.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Sarah, with me today. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having us tell her story.
Yeah, I haven't had two people on the show in a while, and it's always interesting for me, and I hope that the two of you there together, sharing this together, that it brings a little healing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Robert, one thing I wanted to ask. I know when we spoke on the phone, you mentioned that you visit your wife 3 times a day and bring her coffee every morning because she loved her coffee. Are you still doing that?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's hard. I always try to tell myself that I'm going to cut down. I know it's not healthy, but it's too hard for me to not go.
Yeah. I don't think there is any right or wrong way to grieve, or any length of time that is too much or too little to grieve. I think as long as you want to go, and as long as you want to bring her coffee, and if you go 3 times or 10 times a day for years, it doesn't matter.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
And that's the show, everyone. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com. This show won't ever have a members area or episodes that you have to pay to listen to, but there are expenses to hosting a podcast, and if you'd like to help, you can support this show at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. The link is in the show notes below. And if you're still listening, and thank you so much if you are, if you like this episode, please share it with your friends, share it on your social media, and once you've done that, please rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts, because that's where most of our new listeners come from. Ratings and reviews are the main way this podcast finds new listeners. So please share the show. Until next time.